the application of division voting in an election now less than 7 months away, to allow time to receive results of the 2020 census, thereby avoiding a do-over within 2 years, allow time to deal with disenfranchisement presented by district customers who are outside of the district boundaries. The settlement is interim because it bars the door to the courthouse for now. If the district does not follow through on the processes defined in the settlement, courthouse doors will swing open again, and the district and its ratepayers may be subject to litigation costs far exceeding the cost of the settlement. The background and process to date are as follows. On January 14th of this year, the district received a letter from Attorney Philip Greer invoking the California Voting Rights Act. That act sets off a formalized process requiring set of litigation, the district to move from at-large elections for district directors to elections by 5 director divisions. February 28th was the deadline under the law to adopt a resolution of intent to move forward with a process prescribed by the California Voting Rights Act, CVRA. The law prescribes, after the adoption of that resolution of intent, a very, very short 120-day process to conduct 4 public hearings dealing with potential division boundaries, leading to a 5th hearing to adopt an ordinance to establish 5 director election divisions. Threat of litigation under the CVRA is a real threat to have a court actually establish those 5 director divisions, to pay attorney's fees for Mr. Greer, and to pay the district's own costs of litigation. Hundreds of local agencies all over California have received CVRA invocation letters. A few have resisted. None have managed to retain at-large elections after a contest. Several of these agencies that did decide to resist have paid 6- and 7-figure attorney fee awards to the proponents of divisional elections. After receiving the CVRA letter in the middle of January, I took the letter to the Board of Directors in closed session because of the really explicit threat of litigation involved in the CVRA. The board received public participation in the CVRA and divisional elections at 2 meetings. Some major points were received from the public. 1, the process is too rushed. 2, divisional elections should not be rushed to apply to the 2020 election of 3 board members. 3, voters have a right to vote for all 5 board members and should not be limited to voting for only 1. 4, the district should fight division elections like some other public agencies have done. 5, the district should hire better lawyers to carry on the fight. 6, all district customers should have a right to vote. South Laguna customers and others have been disenfranchised. So the board had been scheduled to vote on a resolution of intention on February 20th, but that date was put over to February 28th. And on that date, the board declined to adopt the proposed resolution of intent, but directed me to meet with Attorney Greer and to see if we could negotiate a different path that might meet some or all of the different issues that I have outlined just now that had come out of public discourse leading up to that February 28th meeting. And in addition to that, the district authorized the engagement of Ben DeMaio, an experienced lawyer in Orange County, actually a former county council of the County of Orange, who has participated in a number of agency reapportionment processes, and also, I should say, including some under the CVRA. And so Mr. DeMaio and I met with Mr. Greer and put together a proposed settlement that is before the Water District Board tonight. The settlement is put forth in a stipulation, resolution of voting rights, voting rights issues within South Coast Water District area. That stipulation is proposed to be signed by legal counsel. Among other things, the stipulation recites that we each have authority from our client to sign the stipulation, and that we each of our clients have agreed to be bound by it. And so the terms, as I mentioned, would require the Water District to go through the process, put on a really extended time schedule to implement by division elections by the end, toward the end of 2021. That schedule directives recognized to require flexibility because, for example, right now we have some difficulty in holding very robust public input process, and that would be required for these various public hearings. So that's one reason. Another reason for extending the time out is to make sure that we have the results of the 2020 census available. And by the way, even since the time that we agreed to the stipulation, that is presented to our respective clients, already the census results look like they will be delayed, like so many other things that as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic restrictions and limitations. So the agreement, or the stipulation also calls for a separate resolution in addition to the CVRA resolution. That second resolution would deal with the disenfranchised voters who are district customers in South Laguna. The concept is that in the second resolution, let me explain. Unfortunately, while the name California Voting Rights Act sounds like it should cover this, it really doesn't. California Voting Rights Act has a single purpose, and that's to force at-large voting out of existence at the local government level. And so the idea that voters have been denied their right to vote, certainly that notion must be respected and should be looked into for sure, but it's not part of the California Voting Rights Act. So what the resolution does is require the district general manager to conduct a feasibility review to see if there is a pathway that would allow those voters in South Laguna to become voters in water district elections. So a little history is worth talking about there, because South Laguna was the original heart and soul of Southwest Water District, and our current biggest ever public works project is underway to rehabilitate the sewer interceptor tunnel that runs between the beach and PCH all through South Laguna. So the Water District certainly has tried to maintain civil service for the South Laguna area, and there's, to my observation, there's been an extremely strong relationship between the Water District, the City of Laguna Beach, and the residents of South Laguna, at least for the 5 or 6 years that I've been on board with the Water District. So it is actually, in my career, one of the more pleasing relationships that I've observed. And because of that, there's every reason to be cautious that any proposal here does not cause friction with the City of Laguna Beach. But there's also every reason to want to get maximum public participation in this issue. There's also another area of the district where, another area outside of the district that receives district service, some service connections, as I understand it. So it was interesting. I don't know. My impression is Mr. Greer didn't have South Laguna as part of what he was bringing the threat of litigation about, but he certainly took a shine to it when it did come up, and so that's why it's a major piece of the proposed settlement. The proposed settlement also requires the Water District to pay $20,000 to Mr. Greer upfront as soon as this first resolution of necessity on the CVRA is adopted, and that is no questions asked. There's no requirement for him to demonstrate that he's actually incurred $20,000. However, the settlement goes on to allow for 2 more draws of attorney's fees. And in order to get any part, those 2 additional draws of attorney's fees total cannot exceed a second $20,000. So it's a total of $40,000 in the attorney's fees. However, in order to get any part of the second $20,000, there will be a requirement to justify the first $20,000, and then anything over and above that first $20,000 has to be justified. Again, the target deadline to have the process concluded is by the about Halloween of 2021. I think that there's flexibility built into that timeline, again, because of the major uncertainties that we are now facing over the COVID-19 restrictions, and because of uncertainty about when the results of the 2020 census are going to be available. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to conclude the staff report. I'll be glad to answer questions from the board, and I didn't go into a lot of detail on the dates of when the various hearings and whatnot are scheduled, partly because right now they're in flux. So that would conclude my staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Art. I know that we have a number of people who have submitted written comments to be entered into the record, as well as perhaps some members of the public who are present. Mr. O'Loughlin, I believe, is present in the audience and has a question to speak. Jody, can you give me a listing of those who would like to speak? And maybe this would be the time we'll take public comment, and then we'll return after public comment. We'll return to the board for comments, questions, and discussion.
Yes, sure. Before we do that, we've had 2 more participants join. If you could identify yourself, the phone number ends in 5761.
That's Megan U. Schneider.
Hi, Megan.
Hi, Jody.
Then second one, the phone number ends in 4527.
Jody, that's Sonia. I'm on phone too.
Okay, thanks. Dennis, the request to speak came from Greg O'Loughlin, and Mike Beenan also requested to speak, but I don't see that he's on the call this evening. And the last one is Tony Nelson from Capo Cares, who cannot join in because of the power outage and asked me to read her letter for her.
Thank you, Jody. Let me begin by recognizing Mr. O'Loughlin. Please state your name and place of residence for the record, Mr. O'Loughlin, and please make your comment that you have on this topic. The floor is yours, sir.
Sounds good. Am I connected? Can you hear me all right?
Yes, go ahead.
Very good. My name's Greg O'Loughlin. I'm president of the South Laguna Civic Association, and I live at 31262 Brooks Street in South Laguna. Feedback is really bad. Am I sounding okay?
Yes, understand.
Okay. Good deal. Good deal. Sorry about that if it's on my end. As was spoken, South Laguna Civic Association has a long history here, established in the 40s, and we were actually the founders of the Water District, where your headquarters stand, and we have a long, in my 30 years on the board anyway, we've had a great relationship with the South Coast Water District, and hopefully I want to make sure that our letter's been received and you guys have had a chance to look at it. I won't read the letter, I won't go into the details of the letter, but it's pretty clear that we are very interested in regaining our voting rights to be able to vote for our water district. And My question is, how do we go about doing that? What's the next step? This is clearly a step in the right direction for us. You've got community support from many angles, and just curious how we can help move it forward.
Thank you, sir. We will we'll respond to that as we get to the end of our questions here today, as best we know it today, and there may be more that we'll know as this process moves on into the future. Jody, would you like to please read the letter from Tony Nelson?
Sure. So this is dated today from Tony Nelson, Capistrano Beach. I commend legal counsel for coming to an agreement with the plaintiff's attorney and thank the board for listening to its constituents. It is important that if you must go to district elections, the districts fairly represent and enfranchise all ratepayers. I was pleased to note language that includes your potential future customers as well as your existing South Laguna customers who have never been represented. I was also pleased to see that the demographic data will be derived from the 2020 census, which is now underway. However, I have 3 areas of concern. First, as you know, I have strong suspicions about the origins and intent behind the CVRA demand letter. I note that Mr. Greer's letter of 1/13/19 refers to his plaintiffs as a number of concerned residents residing in the 3 cities of Dana Point, San Juan Capistrano, and San Clemente. I want the directors to know that when I spoke to Mr. Greer in person, he confided that he had 2 plaintiffs. He claimed they spontaneously contacted him out of a stable of 9,000 Orange County lawyers, despite his reputation as the Republican go-to guy in election matters as described in the LA Times article. I invited Mr. Greer to have his plaintiffs contact me personally, as I would have liked to use math and demographics to explain that they will have even less chance of electing a minority representative with district elections than with the at-large system. Unfortunately, the 2 plaintiffs, if they do indeed exist, have not contacted me to date. Second, I am interested in the rationale for paying Mr. Greer $20,000 within 5 days of the resolution with no requirement to substantiate such fees. Mr. Greer will be paid another amount not to exceed $20,000 once the districting move is complete, but in that case, he is required to substantiate his fees. Although I understand that the first payment is a part of the overall negotiation, I am uncomfortable with the district paying anyone for any type of service without substantiation. I suggest that instead he be paid a minimum advance fee of $20,000 now, with the understanding that he will eventually have to substantiate all professional fees and costs, subject to a maximum of $40,000. And lastly, as you may know, the U.S. Supreme Court was petitioned recently to take up Higginson versus Becerra, a case that challenges the constitutionality of the California Voting Rights Act. If the justices accept the case and declare it unconstitutional, as they should, hundreds of California jurisdictions that have been forced to adopt racially gerrymandered single-member election districts during the last few years may choose to restore their previous non-racial forms of governance. The case is being sponsored by Edward Blum, a man who has brought 6 similar cases to the Supreme Court and has won 4. And then she provides a link to a case. Since the board is on record as being opposed to the CVRA action, I am requesting that you also go on record to affirm that you will work to return the district to at-large elections in the event that the CVRA is overturned. It is important to remember that this entire districting effort disenfranchises your ratepayers. In the end, we will lose the right to vote for or recall all 5 directors. I hope you understand that the end result of this saga is that we will lose 80% of our voting rights. And that, gentlemen, is a shameful tragedy. I urge you to do whatever you can to make this unfortunate process as fair and transparent as possible. And that's the end of her letter.
Thank you, Jody, for entering that letter into the comments. Do we have other members of the public who wish to speak on this matter? Any requests to you, Jody?
No, no more requests to me.
Thank you. I'll note that this was a rather robust discussion and good historical perspective given on this topic. That is the South Laguna portion of the district's history at the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee yesterday. Eric Jessen, I believe, is in the audience and gave a nice historical rundown. Thank you for that, Eric. I also note that we have Ben DeMaio on the line. Mr. DeMaio, do you have anything that you would like to add from your perspective as assisting Mr. Kidman on this matter?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, Ben DeMaio. As that last letter that Jody read, correctly said, the federal case that has gone on lost in both the U.S. District Court and lost in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. The prospects for it in the U.S. Supreme Court, I think, are speculative. And should that case be successful, I think the district, we would obviously, should the Supreme Court even accept it for hearing, we would obviously come back to the board and let you know as that case progresses what's happening with it. As Mr. Kidman mentioned, this process will not conclude until the latter part of next year, once we have census data. And it even could go into 2022 because it just has to be completed at least 6 months prior to the 2022 election. So the board would have the flexibility to consider any other litigation that gets decided.
Thank you, Ben. I appreciate that input. Let's turn to the board now for any questions, comments, or discussion on the matter. And I'll start with Doug. Any items you'd like to comment or question on this item?
I have no comments at this time. Over.
Thank you, Doug. Let's move to Bill Green. Bill, any comments or questions? Bill, you could be off mute if you are.
Just a moment. Let me see if I can find him real quick. Can you take him up? Give me a minute, Dennis.
Thank you, Jody. We'll be patient.
Did
Jody,
you take? Oh, okay.
1 minute. Yeah, thank you. No comments, Mr. President, at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Rick Erkeneth, any questions or comments?
Thank you. No questions, but I just would like to commend the district council and our general manager for navigating us through this difficult situation, and look forward to this being all completed sometime out into the future. But for now, we've got more important things on our table. So that's all I have at this time. Over.
Thank you, Rick. Wayne Rayfield, any questions or comments at this point?
No questions or comments, Dennis, but I would move the recommended action. Over.
Thank you for the recommended action. I'll second the motion. Just a question for Art Kidman. Can we take this all as one, or do we need to vote on items A, B, and C on the agenda as individual items? Art, to you.
I'm just off mute. I believe that there should be 3 separate actions because 2 of them are resolutions.
All right. Wayne, will you amend your motion to item number A, authorize district council to execute legal counsel stipulation?
I will amend my motion to
Certainly, I am going to ask, now I just lost it. There was one more person on the phone, and I just wanted to make sure it wasn't a member of the public that wanted to speak. But now I have lost the phone number. Oh, here it is. It ends in 5099. Can you identify yourself, please?
Hi, Jody. It's John Thomas. I'm just listening. I don't want to speak.
Okay, thank you, John. Okay, and now we'll go to the roll call vote on Resolution 9-1920. President Dennis Erdman.
Yes.
Vice President Rick Erkeneff.
Yes.
Director Doug Erdman.
Yes. Over.
Director Bill Green.
Yes.
And Director Wayne Rayfield.
Yes.
That item passes 5-0.
Thank you. The next item is to consider adoption of resolution 11-19/20, asking for directors to make a motion to approve that resolution.
So moved.
Thank
I'll
you. I
second
have
it.
a motion, and we have Bill Green to second that motion. And Jody, would you do a roll call vote on adopting resolution 11-19/20?
Certainly. President Dennis Erdman.
Yes.
Vice President Rick Erkeneff.
Yes.
Director Doug Erdman.
Yes.
Director Bill Green.
Yes.
And Director Wayne Rayfield.
Yes.
That item passes 5-0.
Thank you. I think that brings us to a close on that item. We thank the council for their work on this and look forward to moving into the details needed to get to the finish line on this.
President Erdman, there's actually a third item on that agenda for a recommended action.
Yes, there is a second resolution, 11-1920, and I will approve approval of resolution 11-19.
I think we approved Resolution 9-1920 with the first vote. The second vote, we approved Resolution 11-1920. So the item that we still need approval on is authorize District Council Art Kidman to execute the legal counsel stipulation.
That is item A on the subtext. So, yes, I'll accept your motion, Wayne, to approve item A, which is to authorize District Council Art Kidman to execute the legal counsel stipulation. And I will second that motion. Any comments from the board prior to asking for the roll call vote? Hearing none, Jody, would you take the roll call vote?
President Dennis Erdman,
Yes.
Vice President Rick Erkeneff,
Yes.
Director Doug Erdman,
Yes. Over.
Director Bill Green,
Yes.
and Director Wayne Rayfield.
Yes.
Thank you. Passes 5-0.
Thank you. That does conclude item number 7 on the agenda. We'll move to action item number 8, which is Doheny Ocean Desalination Project, task order public outreach phase 4. And Rick, I believe this is your item to brief, so we'll turn this to Rick Shintaku.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. So this is for a task order regarding the Doheny Ocean Desal project, and it is in regards to public outreach. This item was discussed at the April 13th Admin and Finance Committee meeting, and the committee did recommend the board approval or of staff's recommended action. Just a synopsis of this item is the total amount that it's for $77,587 over the period of 5 months, which basically is May through September. However, we do have the flexibility to authorize the activities, obviously moving forward, but also plan it accordingly. And I would like to maintain a communication channel with the board with this item to make sure that we are going in the direction that the board sees fit. The outreach itself will include outreach on desal, but also overall overarching outreach on water reliability. Would include virtual meetings with various stakeholders, and also in this atypical time that we're dealing with the COVID-19 situation, there's a need to have more virtual outreach, virtual meetings, and Katz and Associates would help guide us or navigate us through that period. Katz and Associates are on the phone. Sarah Katz has joined the meeting, and Sarah Rosetto from Katz and Associates. Also, Mark Donovan from GHD is present as well. I'm going to stop my staff report there and field any questions, or if the board would like, Sarah Katz could also provide a summary of these activities as well. Over.
Thank you, Rick. Let me hold the board members for questions, and then once we've had an initial series of questions from the board, perhaps we'll ask Sarah if she has any elaboration or if she would like to participate in answering any of those questions. Let me start by polling with Doug. Any questions or comments at this point?
I have no questions at this time.
Bill Green, questions or comments at this point?
I have no questions, just comment. I think it is important during this period of stay at home that we get our messages out in a transparent way to outline the benefits of these projects. And also, the project is not going to be healthy unless it has partners. And so, in my opinion, that we need to start collecting partners on this effort. And, you know, there's the benefits of the water quality, the salt reduction in the water, reliability, having emergency supply during disaster times or in drought. And basically, right now, the governor has been busy, obviously, with the COVID-19, but also right before that, he has gone way out on his policies to incorporate desalinization into the water supply. So I think we have a big message to get out there, and if we're all locked down for a few months here, it's going to be difficult to listen to our partners. So that's my comment at this time. Thank you. Over.
Thank you, Bill. I know that the A&F committee has had an opportunity to review this, but we'll turn to Rick Erkenat and then Wayne to get their comments or recommendations as we move forward. Rick, you're on the table.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I fully support this item, and having worked with CATS a number of years ago with the district, I think they're more than equipped to handle our needs. I think that, as Director Green mentioned, a lot of time right now could be kind of pouring a foundation of what our communications are needed here in the coming months. And I think that CAT will really be kind of a feather in the cap for our PIO, for our within our district. And I think that all the staff members and individuals will work together in a really positive way, and I think we'll have a good communications outcome. So with that, I'll move the recommended action.
Thank you for the motion, Rick. Now we'll turn to Wayne. Any questions, comments, or would you be willing to second that motion?
Thank you, Dennis. I would certainly second Rick's motion to approve this contract. Secondly, I would say that at the A&M committee, we had a pretty robust discussion of this whole item.
Thank you, Wayne. I just have a couple of questions and comments
Sarah just jump in accordingly. Am I on?
You're on,
Yes.
Sarah.
Okay, I think I was talking to myself, and then a little voice just told me I was unmuted. So the beauty of the team that we advance and have consistently provided for you is that we're both named Sarah. So when in doubt, if I don't deliver the mail, Sarah Rosetta will certainly come in and do that accordingly. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate the discussion that we had at the ANF committee meeting last week. And I hearken back to that metaphor, what a difference a day makes. Because when we first started talking to Rick and Sonia in February on the scope of services and what it would look like to ensure that you had, you had the ability to tap into both consistently as well as episodically the experience and the relationships and the bench that we have to offer. The world was different, the circumstances were different, and so here we are now at the middle end of April, and we do have some new challenges in front of us. So in no order of priority, Mr. Chairman, you mentioned, first of all, who are the priority stakeholders, and it would be incumbent upon us in working with both Rick and Sonia to revisit, as we look over the next 30, 60, 90 days, the key objectives from a communications standpoint, evaluate any misinformation that is out there, look at what you are endeavoring to advance on a variety of initiatives, and then plan accordingly. You articulated several things, whether it's PFAS or the governor's resilience portfolio or COVID, and these create both obstacles and these create, honestly, opportunities for us. And so, with our ability to provide continued services to both Rick and Sonia, who work very diligently every day to cover all the bases of what's required for your agency, but I think do benefit from and value the ability to brainstorm and be creative and have additional services and capabilities that they can tap into, whether we look at advancing through media strategies, whether we look at through social platforms, whether we look at strategically what needs to be done on the diversification of your portfolio, and then also in the COVID life that we're living right now, a lot of people are asking the question, is even our water safe? We work a lot in the indirect potable reuse space as well as the desal space, and we have a lot of people, both directly and indirectly, say to us, well, look what happened in Flint, Michigan. How can we trust these other kinds of strategies, and do we really have confidence in that? So it's really a multifaceted initiative that we would want to craft for and with you, and certainly with the board input on identification of what you're hearing and seeing and are most concerned about as it relates to whether there is misunderstandings about desal, misunderstandings about where you fit into the scheme of the Orange County communication space for water, what we're doing as it relates to COVID. Are we in the throes of an upcoming drought? I know Northern California is still considered in a drought status, and who knows what the next 12 months will identify for us. And so, candidly, what we wrote in February, I think, has taken a little bit of a different complexion, but we are more than ready to take advantage of the month of May, with the first week of May being Water Awareness Week, affords us some wonderful opportunities to both correct if there are misinformation, to raise the profile, to ensure that your customers see you as, well-managed, visionary, a recognition that you understand what's going on in the world at this time, but still you need to look ahead to ensure a local, reliable, drought-proof water supply for your ratepayers, and do so in a manner that's fiscally responsible, but also with an environmental consciousness that I think we all embrace. So if there are some specifics, Mr. Chairman, that I have not addressed in this short discussion, I'd be happy to do so. And Sonia or Sarah Rossetto, if you feel there's anything I missed that would be important for the board to hear from us, please chime in accordingly.
Thank you, Sarah. We'll open the floor to Sarah or Sonia at this point for any comments.
think what we're looking at in terms of everyone communicating virtually and digitally is so important right now. And so making sure that Sonia has the tools that she needs to be able to get the word out to readers and stakeholders as we pivot to all distance communication. The days of, the typical meeting or face-to-face communication right now are on hold. And so I think that's an important part in factoring into the strategy is how are we effectively communicating to people in new ways right now and making sure that the district has those tools.
Thank you, Sarah. Sonia, do you have anything you'd like to add before we re-poll the directors for any further comments or questions?
An opportunity for that. I'd just like to say that I am certainly grateful for the opportunity to have Pat on and provide assistance for me. As you know, we have a lot of things going on in the district, and it's pretty difficult to be able to handle them all by myself. So I welcome the assistance. And I also would like to say that the actual things that you were mentioning were things that we had discussed ahead of time in terms of scope, because the things like PFAS and the Delta 6 and all of these other issues are critically important, and there's something that's been changing rapidly and fluidly, and I think that requires us to reevaluate and look at things too. So as in water, everything changes every day, so it's good to have an extra set of hands to help us.
Thank you, Sonia, for those comments. Let's go back once more for, first of all, Jody, are there any public comments on this issue?
No request to speak.
Thank you, Jody. Then let's poll the board one more time and see if there's any further questions or comments before we take a vote. We do have a motion and a second for the recommended action on this item. I'll start with you, Doug. Any questions or comments?
I have no questions or comments. Over.
Thank you. Bill Green?
Thank you, Dennis. Maybe A&E or maybe the DCEL ad hoc committee can be part of the discussion to maybe be able to help the some of the questions and concerns the board may have. Over.
Comment, Bill. Thank you. Rick Erkeneff?
I have no further questions. Just one quick comment. Thank you to our board president for itemizing, some of the key items. I think at this point in the cycle that we're in, us as a district, speaking to other cities and entities, both at staff level and elected level, where it seems fit, is to me what is going to be a really important part of this communication strategy. When talking to the public, we've had a lot of valuable years worth of outreach, and there is just overwhelming support within the community of Dana Point for this. But I think we need to reach out to other communities in the adjacent potential service area for where the wet water could be delivered. So with that, I'll conclude my comments. Thank you. Over.
Thank you, Rick. Wayne, any further comments or questions?
Nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you. Then there's a motion and a second to approve recommended action here, which is to authorize award task order number 5, amendment to the GHD contract for the Doheny Ocean Desal Project, Phase 4 public outreach in the amount of $77,587. Jody, would you please take the roll call vote?
Certainly. President Dennis Erdman,
Yes.
Vice President Rick Erkeneff,
Yes.
Director Doug Erdman,
Yes. Over.
Director Bill Green,
Yes.
and Director Wayne Rayfield.
Yes.
That item passes 5-0.
Thank you. Item 9 on our action agenda tonight, the subject is federal legislative advocacy consulting services, a potential agreement with Parker Levitt, TL LC. And Rick, are you going to
Yes, Mr. President, thank you very much. Members of the board, this item is for a potential agreement with Barker Levitt in Washington, D.C. as our federal lobbyist moving forward. It's very similar to the last item where the initial intent was desal focus, and in the past, as we navigated through, in terms of the successful completion or award of the $8.3 million federal grant that we received from the United States Bureau of Reclamation, Barker Levitt was very instrumental in assisting us in their capacity as the MODOC federal lobbyist. So I've had experience working with them. I've traveled to D.C., and they've navigated the path and put us in the key meetings that we needed to further ensure that the grant monies would be there and awarded to us. So this contract in front of you is for an amount of $8,000 per month, a retainer for 1 year period for a total of $96,000. Although it's within my GM approval authority, I did want to bring this forward for board discussion and consideration. Also on the phone with us is Mr. Jim Barker and Ryan Levitt from the firm Barker Levitt from Washington, D.C. So they can answer a number of these tough questions. I did want to cover that, yes, we did start down this desal path, but now in the COVID-19 period that we're in, there is the potential, as you'll see on page 3 of the staff report, section 5, congressional efforts to mitigate the economic impacts of the COVID-19 virus on our economy. So we're expecting that there will be stimulus or infrastructure-related funding opportunities, and not just for desal, but also for other water and wastewater infrastructure projects that we are pursuing currently in pursuit of here at South Coast Water District. So the role has been expanded from just the desal. We also, for the public's knowledge, we were awarded the $8.3 million from the feds. We do have an opportunity to get another $11.7 million, which we currently applied for and have been immersed in those meetings, and Barker Levitt has been instrumental in getting us to those meetings and meeting with the right staff to provide more knowledge about the project and also to answer any questions along the way. The staff report is pretty comprehensive. We also included their qualifications and resumes in the attachments to the staff report. I'm going to conclude my staff report there, and Jim Barker may want to chime in or answer questions, along with Ryan Levitt. Over. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick, for your comments. Mr. Barker, Mr. Levitt, either of you wish to speak, we thank you for bearing with us through our agenda. And now's your time. So if you have anything you'd like to say to the board, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, President. We're glad to be with you this evening. So let me, Mr. President, we could talk for 2 or 3 minutes. I don't know how much time you'd like to have me speak, but we are excited to represent the South Coast. I would just amend Rick's statement by saying there are several opportunities for South Coast on the horizon. One is the Senator Feinstein bill that would increase the current funding for desal competitive grants from $20 million to $30 million. And so there's a chance that if that bill passes, South Coast would be able to apply for more money. Additionally, there's the Congressman Levin bill that would also increase potential funding for desal projects. I would like to talk for just a minute, and I'd like to invite Ryan here to speak right after I speak. But on the ongoing efforts for the Congress to pass either relief or stimulus measures, depending upon how you define them, the administration and House and Senate Democrats clearly want to go to a phase 5 or a 5th stimulus bill. that fifth stimulus bill, they are talking about two primary components. One would be funding for cities and states, and another component would be infrastructure. Water infrastructure has been one of the things they have discussed, including. I might add, just in the last 48 hours, you may have picked this up, but Senator Mitch McConnell of Kentucky has expressed concerns about giving additional monies to cities and states. Earlier today, President Trump said that he had talked to Senator McConnell, and he's talking to other Senate Republicans. President Trump and other members of the administration are trying to get Senator McConnell to walk those comments back so that the Congress can pass a bipartisan stimulus bill that would include funding for both cities and towns, and part of that would be for special districts, and that's a key component. I know that your district has recently sent a letter to key congressional offices on this very topic. We would want to work on those issues as well as these other water issues that affect South Coast, including PFAS, and of course all the different funding opportunities that could occur for the Doheny Beach desal project. With that, let me turn to Ryan and ask if he has any comments that he'd like to make at this time.
Thank you, Jim. I think you covered our proposal pretty well. I would mention that there are a lot of efforts that need to be taken to get the $8.3 million dispersed from the Bureau of Reclamation first, and then you mentioned both of those legislative vehicles are going to provide opportunities for South Coast to get an increased amount of grants for the desal project. Additionally, Congress is very busy the remainder of this Congress with reauthorization with the WRDA bill, the WIN Act, and these are all important pieces of legislation when it comes to opportunities for federal funds. And these are items that we would want to work very closely with the congressional offices and the committees in jurisdiction to make sure that South Coast needs are met there, and that there are improved opportunities for federal funds to flow to South Coast. So with that, I'll get back.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Jim, for your comments, and thank you for again for bearing with us. We realize there's a 3-hour time difference back to your coast. I would now turn it to the board of directors and get comments, questions from the board members. And let's start with Doug. Any comments or questions?
I have no comments at this time.
Thank you, Bill Green.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, I've had the opportunity to work with both Jim and Ryan most recently in Washington, D.C. And I tell you what, they have the knowledge, they have the experience. I know Jim is modest. He's been former chief of staff for various Congress Senate back there, and also they know their way in, and they've been strategic in setting up meetings to help us gain the Bureau of Reclamation $8.3 million. So I want to thank you for that effort. And that was really an effort provided with the help of MODOC and their team. And so I would make a motion to move ahead with this engagement. Over.
Thank you for that motion, Bill. We'll move now to Rick Erkenau.
Thank you. I'll second that motion. Again, Bill Green and I attended a conference back in the end of February of this year to Washington, D.C., and we're effectively handheld through the Capitol and through the Bureau of Rec, and I can say that their firm is top-notch, and I think that this will have a lot of value for us as a district, and they, again, will be able to be eyes and ears and boots on the ground in D.C., which is it's quite difficult to have influence over there from here, and knowing that our congressional representation here locally are very supportive, obviously, it's great to have voices that can carry through the halls on both sides of the aisle. So again, with that, I'll second that motion, and those are my comments for now. Over.
Thank you, Rick. Turning to Wayne.
Thank you, Dennis. My only comment is I support the motion. Over.
Thank you, Wayne. Jody, do we have any members of the public that would like to weigh in on this topic tonight?
No, I have no request to speak.
Thank you. That brings us back to the motion on the floor, which is recommended action to approve, authorize the general manager to enter into a contract, consultant service contract or agreement with Parker Levitt in the amount of $8,000 per month for a 1-year period with a total of $96,000. And Jody, would you take the roll on that motion?
Yes. President Dennis Erdman. Vice President Rick Erkeneff.
Yes.
Director Doug Erdman. Did we hear from Doug?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Director Bill Green
Yes.
and Director Wayne Rayfield.
Yes.
Thank you. The item passes 5-0.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. We look forward to a good relationship and a productive year having you work for us in Washington, D.C.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. I think that concludes our action calendar for this evening. We'll turn to items to be considered at the next meeting. Going to the board members, Doug, any items for consideration for the next meeting?
I have nothing at this time.
Okay. Bill Green, any items?
No, I don't have any others. Thank you. Over.
Okay, thank you. Rick Erkeneff?
Nothing at this time. Thank you. Over.
You and Wayne, any items for next time?
Nothing at this time. Thank you. Over.
Thank you. I would just like to, as much as we have had some talk about Doheny desal and how Doheny is proceeding and things that have changed over time, I'd like to bring an item to the board just to have an update and perhaps a little bit of a brainstorming session with respect to Doheny desal and the overall direction for the project. And as a result of the delays that we've seen because of our getting into the permitting process, talk about alternatives and how we're moving forward with Doheny desal. Acceptable to the staff to bring that item at a, not necessarily the next, but at a future meeting. I would appreciate that. And then I'm also looking forward to seeing at a future meeting. I know we're in the midst of budget development. I think it's important that we get at least one preliminary budget meeting before we are looking at adopting a final budget. So those would be my requests for 2 future items on the agenda coming up soon. Is that acceptable, staff?
That is. Thank you, Mr. President. Over.
Thank you. That'll take us to oral comments from staff and consultants. And Rick, I'm going to hand it to you to pass the microphone around the room since you're there and can see not only who's present, but who is also present joining us by remote, and make sure that we have touch base with all the relevant parties.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mr. President. We have a sparsely populated boardroom right now, but we have a good virtual room, so I'm going to hand it off to Pam Arens-King for her comments. She's in the boardroom.
Thank you, Rick, and board members. I have no comment other than we will be bringing the budget to the board next month. I believe we have a special meeting for that, correct, Jody?
May 26th.
May 26th. We will be bringing it to the ANF committee mid-May. And within that meeting, we will also be looking at long-term forecasting with an updated financial planning tool. And that's all I have. Thank you. Over.
Thank you, Pam. Jody Brennan.
Oh, I have nothing. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jody. And I'm going to go in order on the screen here. Joe McDivitt.
Thank you, Rick, and good evening, Mr. President, Directors. I don't have anything to add this evening. However, there was an inquiry or a call from one of the directors, Mr. Urkanev, regarding a pressure issue at his home. And Greg Pennington is on the line, I believe, and I've asked Greg to do a little research and give us an update this evening. Greg, are you on the line?
Yes, Joe.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. President, members of the board, this is an update of an incident that happened this afternoon that caused the low pressure. There's a fire hydrant lateral failure. Lateral is the pipeline that feeds the fire hydrant in the main. So it's not a mainline break, but it's the large line that feeds the hydrant. Failure of the fire hydrant is low pressure. The hydrant is located in the vicinity of Golden Lantern and Dana Point Drive at the entrance of Waterford Point. Crews were dispatched. They isolated the fire hydrant, and they estimate a loss of about 47,000 gallons. They went further and inspected the local, the contributing pump station, and everything is back in order, pressure restored, and it's been isolated. And Brian Lynn will meet with the contractor, district-approved contractor tomorrow, and he'll coordinate and arrange repairs to be performed next week. So that concludes my update. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Over.
Thank you, Greg. Mark Cerna.
Yes, thank you, Rick, Mr. President, members of the board. No further comments this evening. Thank you very much. Over.
Thank you, Mark. And I did want to recognize the other staff that did call in. Steve Deshawn, let's see here, Chris Newton, Dennis Elby, let's see, Kyle Goff, Brian Black is here, helping to captain this show here. Taryn Kosing, Brian Huber, Roman Abzeta, and Leilani Ayers. Thank you for calling in. If any of you have anything to update us on, please just unmute and speak up. Okay, seeing none, I will give my quick update and then hand it back off to the board. So I wanted to start off with giving kudos to our staff and to the public. The curves, the good curves that we're seeing with the COVID-19 situation in our area is not happening on accident. And a lot of social distancing and masks are being worn. We're wearing our masks pursuant to our policy that we adopted to ensure that our employees are safe and that we're also safe with our interactions with our public. A lot has been changing, and we'll continue to update the public on any reopenings or restructuring of additional public interface, if you will. So our offices are currently closed, but hopefully at some point in the future that we'll be able to open up to walk-in traffic again, and we will continue to keep you posted. And kudos to our staff for keeping the water and wastewater systems running smoothly through this COVID situation, which is a lot more difficult with additional personal protection equipment that they have to embark in and additional procedures. So good job, guys and gals. And the second update I have is our Human Resources Department did a great job of applying for the CalGov HR Award, and they were awarded that in March, and they picked that award up in the Napa area during that March timeframe, so congratulations to them. And my third item has to do with, I know I sounded like a broken record over the last several meetings talking about toilet paper and public, please flush only toilet paper. And it seems all of the outreach efforts from Sonia Morgan, Greg Chris, Joe, all of the staff that have been doing their outreach to electronic signs, social media, etc. It's getting a bit better. So a lot less ragging that we're seeing, or balled up flushable wipes that aren't flushable, paper towels, and all the other non-flushables tend to ball up in our lift stations and cause major problems. And we've been seeing less of that. So thank you to the public. Please keep it up. And if you are in danger of running out of toilet paper, please contact us. We'll do our best to get toilet paper in to your households. That concludes my report. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Over.
Thank you, Rick. I think we'll now turn to Art Kidman. Any good job tonight, Art, on your presentations, and anything further you'd like to add before we close the meeting?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I attended a webinar this afternoon on the Brown Act and how that is to be managed, doing things electronically as we are now. 3 lawyers made that presentation. It probably would have been better to have a couple of Jodys and Brian on that instead. But it seems to me that we're doing things right. One of my takeaways, though, was that these younger lawyers seem to think that conducting meetings, via telephone or by internet link is the way to go. And I don't know. In my own personal opinion, I like to see the whites of their eyes. So I hope we can get back to having face-to-face meetings someday. And thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I have.
Thank you, Art. Polling the board now for any final comments. In the same rotation we've done before. Doug, anything further from you?
I'd just like to reiterate what Rick said earlier, and being an essential worker myself, I know how difficult it is, I know how stressful it is, and I want the staff to know how appreciative I am, and I'm sure all of the ratepayers are, that they're coming to work every day and doing everything they do to make sure the water and sewer systems work as well as they do. So thank you, everyone. Over.
Thank you, Doug. Bill Green, over to you.
Thank you. That was a great comment, Doug. I appreciate that. And I second that comment. During these times of lockdown, it seems like we're still very busy with conference calling. And I know this month alone, I've had the opportunity to be on several of these MODOC conference board meetings, and as well as our E&Os and all. So the technology is here, thank goodness. Otherwise, we would definitely be at a standstill. So thank you to all of the staff and the hard work. Over.
Thank you, Bill. Rick Erkenev.
Thank you. I have nothing further to add tonight, other than thank you for the quick update on that water pressure issue. It was a little bit disconcerting to turn on the water and not have it really come on like it normally does. So I knew there was maybe a problem, and it sounds like it was resolved quickly and efficiently by our expert staff. That's great, and everybody, both in the public and at staff level, be safe. And before we know it, this will be hopefully in our rearview mirrors, and as our chemical said, we'll be able to see the whites of our eyes and get back to business as usual. Thank you, and out.
Thank you, Rick, and over to you, Wayne.
Thank you, Dennis. I really have nothing to add except to extend my hope that everyone listening to this conference or teleconference, either tonight or in the future, stays healthy. That's it. Over and out.
Thank you, Wayne. The only comment that I would offer tonight, I've always been impressed by the ability that the public has to reach back and look at board meetings, check the videos. Granicus is a wonderful system, and our our staff does a great job of keeping it functional. I don't know how things have been with respect to the last several meetings that we've held in the manner that we've done tonight. I would encourage the staff to play the role of a public citizen wanting to tune in and listen to what happened tonight to see if there are any improvements that we can make, since we may be on this system for a while yet, and to be sure that as well as we can, we have good audio. Video not so important, but to make sure that as many people have appropriate audio connections so that the words and deeds get recorded correctly and are accessible as an archive for the future. Our board meeting minutes encapsulate everything, but sometimes it's nice to be able to tune in and hear the flavor of the discussion that takes place as we deliberate on these matters. I have nothing further, and unless someone else has something for the good of the order, I'll hold for a moment and ask if there's anyone else like to make a report or a comment.
Mr. President, I'm so sorry to interrupt again. I forgot one item, a critical item, if you may. There's a red. Thank you. There's a red tide event off of our coastline, and I know it was earlier mistaken to be a sanitary sewer spill. It's not. It's a red tide event. Just wanted the public to know that in case they're seeing any type of gossip or other type of social media outreach about that. But it is a red tide event. It is not a sanitary sewer spill. We did check into that. Over. Thanks.
Thank you, Rick. That was an important update. Thank you for remembering. And with that, this meeting is adjourned. Everyone stay safe. Thank you.
Another one done.
Thank you.
Pam, you're awfully quiet over there.
That's right.
You're saving it all up.
I'm saving my energy.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Another smooth meeting.
Yeah,
Yep.
but fine, huh?
Well, closed session, we had that power outage. Everybody just got zapped. Yeah. But Dennis, Wayne, a bunch of them just dropped off. They just zapped off. Yeah. That was interesting. But anything that's humanly within your powers, you guys have been keeping smooth. Knock on wood, there's no earthquakes. Yeah. We actually got a lot of that feedback that your meetings are going really smooth compared to other people's. Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
I had Laguna Beach County Water District.
I said, I think we need to invest in something different than this, because then even the Sackville Finance Committee meeting, it didn't work that great with the team. I mean, you couldn't see that you had a look, I don't know.
I had
It's so
Laguna.
smooth, I'm like, I'll set up a meeting.
I had Laguna Beach County Water District contact me today and said, "What are you guys using? We are struggling, and do you like your system?" And she said, "I can't leave people. I can't do this." And I gave her all these ideas.
It's the same one?
She said she couldn't even move people or unmute people, and I.
Wow. So you guys can unmute someone without them pressing the. So that's what's missing from a lot of these other folks.
Yeah.
They're unable to do that for some reason. They don't know how to do it, and it just becomes this uncomfortable point in the meeting. Yeah. Everybody's yelling at you're muted.
That's why it's,
Unmute yourself.
That's why it's so nice to have Brian here and then Leilani at home, and so we make each other. There's three of us, and we have co-hosts.
Yeah.
And then anybody who's a co-host can do the muting and unmuting.
Yeah.
so all of it can watch it.
That's important too.
I think there's a multi-trial. Take a computer code.
Oh,
So they go like, I think it's star count 6.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Most of them are star 6, right? Is that
Should be. I mean, this was the star count. So I didn't want to try to compete. But
Yes, right, right, we don't have
I'm
it
sure
on
they're
our
on a
phone.
flip phone or maybe like an original telephone with a rotary dial.
No, they're like my dad with the original flip phone that he bought, that we bought him like when cell phones came out.
Or like Carrot's phone. She's got
Does she really?
Wow.
Karen
You're
Colsing?
kidding me.
Oh, that is funny.
That's funny.
The phone company, the wireless company told us, we're going to obsolete this. We're turning off the different devices, so you need to get the different devices.
That's funny.
Matt Kavanaugh.
Okay.
so Cameron, have a little finance business for us to take care of real quick before we go get that lockbox out.
All right. Another week.
Yeah.
Great job,
These are
everyone.
just flying by.
Yeah.
Tomorrow you guys are off again.
Yeah, for a half day, right? About?
We take it, yeah. We're
Okay.
probably less.
Yeah.
We talked about it one time, it should be 30 minutes-ish.
Right, well, I probably won't, I missed up the word.
Let you know if I do.
Okay.
Hopefully he doesn't. If running out of the subject that you need to, and then take the risk on it, but then you're like, oh, that's your best. I'm not picking it up.
Until it's safe to be in contact.
Yeah. Really? He actually thought he had it. 'Cause we saw him, it was right around after Thanksgiving, it was like here in front of him, and he had like walking pneumonia. We went to some conferences in Vegas. He came back, and he was out with walking pneumonia, went to the hospital, the whole thing. That was before anybody knew.
Just like February or what?
It was like November, December.
Okay, that's what I'm hearing. That's
So
the
he
whole
was
version.
like- Probably.
He had it or he didn't know?
He doesn't know. He had
So,
tested.
when I was like, December, January, and she never did. Lights out, fever. My son got it, my daughter got it. Also didn't have flu, no flu. There's some virus. They all recovered that. I know they actually. And then Joe McDivitt was telling me the same thing, and then I started reading articles. Oh my goodness, you guys probably did have it.
Yeah, we think he wouldn't be surprised if he heard of it. Because I think I had like symptoms and stuff, because I saw him a couple days, we didn't even stop by for a second to talk to this guy. It kind of looks like it, but, but he